I know you're wondering. This doesn't look anything like my room in New York City. Well, there's a story behind that. It's time for another episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast.
It's time for the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. The podcast you look forward to for all of your news and reviews of the best comic books hitting stands. Whether it's DC,
Batman, Wonder Woman,
Marvel,
Spider-Man,
Image,
Spawn, Saga,
Boom,
Once and Future, Power Rangers,
or whatever book or publisher you follow,
we cover them all here.
this is the place for you.
That's right, it's for everyone.
This is the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast.
Let's get it.
Hey, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I am your host, Theo. And yeah, I'm back home in Louisiana. This is my third and unfortunately my final recap of New York Comic Con 2025. And I guess the first question is why? Well, you can blame Mother Nature for that. So my plans were to not return back to Louisiana until late Sunday night, uh, to allow me to entertain myself at the final day of New York Comic Con. But uh, as many of you may know already, if you were following the news, there was a nor'easter that went up the East Coast and hit New York, and Delta, sent out a text and email basically warning that flights may have been canceled, to in waiting for this weather event to pass. And so, they were looking at beginning canceling flights as early as Sunday afternoon. And again, my flight was set for Sunday evening. So, they suggested folks to, either buckle down for a couple of days or to get earlier flights. So for me, that meant, either staying in New York until possibly Tuesday, which wasn't something that I could do, or return home early. So I took the latter, got an early flight, and made my way back to Louisiana, which prohibited me from going to the fourth and final day of New York Comic Con. So while I am a little bit upset about that, the thought of having to be trapped in New York City for, if not one day, 2 days, because of the weather, I did not want to take that chance. So I unfortunately did not participate in that fourth day of the event, which caused me to miss out on some stuff Saturday evening, as well as, I had to come and prepare to leave for 6 o'clock in the morning instead of 5 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday. But in this episode, again, going to be my recap of day three of New York Comic Con. And then I'm also going to play a few interviews that I either was a part of or conducted myself. So every year, whether I'm going to New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con, the folks at Skybound invite me to participate in their press events, at the conventions. And that was again the case this year. The folks over at Skybound invited me to participate in their press gaggle. So I attended that. And so one of the few videos that you'll see is going to be a video breakdown with the folks that's covering the Energon Universe, or the Energon Universe, over at Skybound. So that's the creative teams that are writing or drawing either Void Rivals, Transformers, or G.I. Joe. So in one group, we had the folks on the Void Rivals and the Transformer side, and that included the new writer, Robert Kirkman, who took over for Daniel Warren Johnson, Dan Mora, the new artist who took over for Jorge Corona. Jorge Corona was also a part of this group. So while he is uh, passing on the interiors to Dan Mora, he is still doing the covers. He's doing a line of connecting covers for the Transformers that'll be coming out over the next several months. So he was a part of this piece, this gaggle, and then Connor Hughes, and Connor Hughes is the new artist over on Void Rivals who took over for Lorenzo De Felici. So, the first video will be a conversation with those guys. And then the second video, which was a little bit shorter because we were running short on time in the press room, included Tom O'Reilly, who is the main artist on G.I. Joe, and then the executive editor over at Skybound, who is Ben Abernathy. And if you remember him, he's the former group editor of the Batman line of books over at DC Comics. But he now serves as the executive editor over at Skybound. And so he sat in because Joshua Williamson was not able to attend the press gaggle. I did see Josh after the gaggle. He actually attended the Skybound Energon Universe panel that was at New York Comic Con. Again, he apologized for missing the gaggle, but he was able to speak to me for a few minutes after the panel was over. But that's going to do it for the episode. Again, it's my third and final recap. And so, with that being said, let's kick things off with my recap of day 3 of New York Comic Con. So, let's talk a little bit about the panels that I attended on Saturday. First of all, I did mention early in the intro about the Energon Universe over at Skybound, and it's always fun sitting with that because you have some guys with Robert Kirkman and Joshua Williamson, and again they had Connor Hughes and Dan Mora, and they had the other creators there as well, but they just all seem to love what they're doing and having these properties that have been entrusted to them by Hasbro to create this new universe with G.I. Joe, Void Rivals, and with Transformers. And so, while they did mention a few things that had occurred in the press gaggle that I attended prior to the panel, they didn't, they did reveal some stuff that wasn't. So, they revealed the return of Brawn coming back in Transformers in a few months, and they talked about the first appearance of Road Pig, a longtime GI Joe character who will be finally making his first appearance in an upcoming issue, and I think it was issue 14 that they announced that he will be making his first appearance. And then they also announced that Matt Tracker would finally be coming back in a future issue of G.I. Joe. So there were a couple of things that they revealed. They also revealed the debut of Roadblock in G.I. Joe. And so for those of you who are fans of the long time character in G.I. Joe. He'll be making his first appearance in G.I. Joe number 18. And the story and how Joshua Williamson explained it really is interesting, in the fact that, he stated how both the Joes and Cobra would do some hard recruiting into getting Roadblock on their side. And so they talked about those things. They talked about some of the upcoming events that is coming up. Of course, on the Void Rival side, there's the Quintessence War. On the G.I. Joe side, there's the Dreadnought War. So they have some events coming up, not necessarily crossovers. These are not crossovers at all, other than what has already existed in particularly Void Rivals, with regards to Void Rivals having all three entities in that story with the participants, or the civilians from Cobra La. Then of course, we have the Transformers, we have Hot Rod, and we have a few Springer and a few others, and Scorzoid, and just a whole bunch that are in the World of Void Rivals. That's the closest we have to a crossover. But these separate wars that are going on, I would assume at some point they may come back and play a bigger part, somewhere down the line, when we finally eventually get a huge major crossover. But you could tell, not just from that panel, but also from the press event that I attended that I'll be playing, that they are in it for the long haul. These guys, putting the Energon universe together, you know, whether it's Robert Kirkman or with Joshua Williamson, who Kirkman had to warn several times in the panel to not reveal any secrets. But yeah, you could see that they are in it for the long haul, and you could definitely see it, when it comes to talking about certain characters. And I remember when both in the press gaggle, the name Snake Eyes is really taboo. I remember, and you'll see it, and I remember asking Tom Raleigh about, drawing characters, and I just mentioned Snake Eyes, and before I can even get the S in eyes out, he was shutting it down. And before the panel even began, Ben Abernathy came out and was like, "Look, we can't answer questions about Snake Eyes, and we got folks from Hasbro here as well." So, Snake Eyes, and the mention of Snake Eyes is really taboo with the Energon universe right now, and that partnership that they have with Hasbro. He's coming. The only question is when, but no one seems to know because Robert Kirkman is not letting it spill, and so they have that on lockdown. And yeah, I'm assuming he's coming sooner or later, but yeah, don't get your hopes up if you're looking to see Snake Eyes in. I would guess at least the next 6 months there won't be any mention of Snake Eyes. Now, I would like to see what's going on with Scarlet. We haven't seen her, in a while, but yeah, Snake Eyes, yeah, very taboo of a conversation of a topic with the folks at Skybound and the Energon Universe. So that's all I'm going to say on on Snake Eyes. But yeah, they went ahead and they did a lot of talking. They revealed a lot of covers and images in the panel while talking about the plans that they have ahead uh, for Skybound. They introduced a toy that they will be coming out with in early 2026. I want to say they're going to put it up for pre-sale in November, if I can remember off the top of my head. But it was an Optimus Prime uh, action figure, and it is based on the Transformer character of the Energon universe. And in this universe, Optimus has an arm that is Megatron's old cannon gun. And so, this big action figure that Hasbro has produced, and I don't know how many prototypes they have, but they have at least two because Robert Kirkman was playing with both of them up on the stage. But that will be coming out soon. I know that they already have Void Rival action figures that are available. I believe they're still out on pre-order. They haven't been released yet, but if you're interested in action figures, those will be coming out if they're not out already. But the Transformer, the one for Optimus Prime, won't be out until 2026. But it's always fun going to the Skybound panels. All the participants that were there received an ashcan copy of, I want to say this is going to be their 2026 Energon Universe special, but got a copy of that, so I'm happy to always attend those to get that free copy. And again, with the ash cans, it's always just previews. There's no words, no dialogue. It's just images, typically always in black and white, which is the case for the ones from Skybound. So always thank those folks for one inviting me to the press event, as well as having a spot for me in the panel to sit in and listen in. But that's always fun. Also, there was the DCKO panel, which was different from the other DC panel that happened on Friday, which was particularly on the Gotham City side. But of course, the big news with DC and DCKO was the reveal that Scott Snyder provided, showing that we have some outside non-DC characters that will be making their way into DCKO, and that was Samantha Strong from Beneath the Trees, When Nobody Sees, Homelander from The Boys. We have Red Sonja and Vampirella, Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, and then Abigail. It's Abigail, yeah, from The Conjuring. That will all be making appearances in this battle. And so when that came up, I really thought that those would be the redacted in the Superman versus redacted, or the Wonder Woman versus redacted issues that are coming out over the next month or so. But in the DCKO panel, it was revealed that it is not. So those redacted characters are actually DC characters. The one that is most interesting is going to be Red Hood versus the Joker. So we see Jason will probably be able to go buck wild on the man that is responsible for taking his life back in Death in the Family. So Superman is going to be taking on Captain Atom. Harley Quinn is going to be taking on uh, Zatanna. Yes, Zatanna. And the one that's really interesting to me as a Guy Gardner fan is Guy Gardner will be facing Jay Garrick in the pages of The Flash. So that's going to be fun to see as a Guy Gardner fan. So we'll see how that turns out. Of course, I'll be cheering for my boy Guy to pull out the win. But also announced in that panel is the kids of the DC universe is going to have an issue as well. And so we'll see the likes of Cassandra Cain and John Kent in their roles as Batgirl and Superman. We'll see Jay Garrick's daughter. We'll see Mr. Terrific's son and his former sidekick all play a role in that series that will be coming out. So there is a whole ton that DC is going to be doing, and that's not including the reveal of the new line of books that they have coming out with this next level, which will be Greg Rucka doing Batwoman, which is which is the one I am definitely excited for. That one and the Barbara Gordon title, which is called Outbreak or Breakout. So those are the ones that I will be definitely looking to pick up and cover in some fashion, whether it's here on the comic book spot or at the Batman universe. We also get word that the Legion of Superheroes is coming back, and Joshua Williamson will be manning the writing duties on that title. So I don't know if I could see it possibly happening with Superboy Prime, leading the team based on what we're getting in Superman right now, especially after everything that happened. At least I can hope. But that's coming soon. So DC has a lot going on, and I am proud to be a DC fan to see how some of this stuff plays out as we go into 2026. Then I also went to the Marvel Comics next big Thing panel, which is what they call their panel every year. I'm not sure why they do that, but anyway, went to that panel. I was not able to stay for the whole thing because it coincided with the time I had to leave to go and meet with Joe Illidge for an interview, which of course I'll be playing a little bit later. But for what I did attend, they pretty much did a rundown on how things would be coming to an end with the Ultimate Universe. So it was revealed at San Diego Comic Con that the Ultimate Spider-Man would be ending by the end of this year with issue number 24. Uh, and of course, we know Ultimate Endgame is starting, but by mid-year 2026, what we know as this version of the Ultimate Universe will be over. So all of the titles that are going on right now will have ended by then, and they're all going to be ending with their 24th issue. So by the end of May, going into the month of June, there will be no more Ultimate Universe on the Marvel Comics side. So that has been that's a little disappointing to hear, because I really enjoyed the Ultimate Universe, with Spider-Man in particular, and Spider-Man and actually Spider-Man, Ultimate Wolverine, and the Ultimates have been my favorite. I still have not yet picked up Ultimate X-Men, although people have really been telling me I need to give it a try. I just haven't uh, for various reasons. But I would assume that by the time Ultimate Endgame starts, I really need to catch up on it so that I can know what's going on. We are also going to be getting a another annual similar to the one that we got this year. 1 year in, we're going to be getting a 2 year in as well. So don't know where that one's going to be looking at. The first one focused on Nick Fury planning to turn on the Maker and the Council, only to find out that he is one of the many clones that have been created, much like there was the whole notion of Nick Fury being a clone in 616. But we're going to be getting that as well. And that was primarily all that I was able to hear out of that panel again before leaving. And so after that, I had to go on and prepare for my interview with Joe Illidge, and that kind of ended my day again. And the primary reason my day ended early was because I had to prepare to leave early Sunday morning due to the rain potential that the weather service and Delta was warning us about. But what I was planning on doing that evening was I was actually invited to an event by Titan Comics that they were holding with the folks over on the hard case imprint side of their their line. But I wasn't able to attend, because it was a bow party and I really wanted to go, but I really had to get back, because by the time I made it back to the hotel, it was maybe around 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I didn't want to stay up too late knowing that I had to get up early to get to the airport in order to get back to Louisiana. But that was my day three. That was my Saturday at New York Comic Con. Again, very busy, busy enough to where I wasn't able to do a lot of videotaping that I had planned on doing. But again, it's always fun hanging out at that place, watching the cosplayers as they make their way throughout the Javits Center. But the other thing that I also enjoy is the networking that I'm able to do with others in the industry, and talking to them and talking to creators on the side, whether on or off the record. But that's my day 3 recap. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to first play some of the clips from the press gaggle that I attended with the folks at Skybound and the Energon Universe, talking about the future with Transformers now in the hands of Robert Kirkman and Dan Moore, as well as Boy Rivals, which of course is also Robert Kirkman with art from Connor Hughes, and then finally G.I. Joe with Joshua Williamson and Tom Raleigh. Again, Josh wasn't there at the gaggle, and Ben Abernathy was there in his place for a few minutes because he actually had to leave as well to prepare for the actual panel that was occurring not too long after the gaggle ended. But enjoy this, and I will see you all on the other side.
You were saying earlier, but
That's allowed.
Yeah, okay, just a little bit. But I wanted to know what, by keeping it vague, no specifics, what is something that you can say you are extremely excited about for the upcoming Transformers book?
I mean, so much. Keeping it vague.
Yeah, or you can get specific. You can do spoilers. It's fine.
I don't know. There are things that were hinted at in 25 that I'm very excited about getting to, although it's probably going to take a little longer than people might expect. No. But yeah, I mean that's a big one. We're doing a lot of new stuff that hasn't really existed prior that I'm excited about. That we're going to be adding to the Transformers lore and mythos in some interesting ways. And so as we get deeper into my run, that kind of stuff will be working its way in, and I hope fans are digging that stuff. So it'll be cool.
Awesome.
Turning everybody into dogs. Go ahead. Oh wait, you guys got stuff that you're excited about?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a whole connected cover that I guess I'm excited to get into the last one. So, that part's fun. And also, I'm sorry. So, yeah, it's fine. Well, I just finished up this arc, and so I'm excited for the next issue. Pop in the light.
More Skuxoid.
Yeah.
We already got the answer over here. It was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, great.
So,
It's a tiger. It's a tiger.
issue 25. Issue 25 is now in the books. So it was for me. It was kind of hard letting go of what Daniel was doing.
Same.
What type of plans do you all have? You mentioned that you were doing some new stuff.
Yeah.
Outside of perhaps bringing Bumblebee back. What type of stuff do you all plan as far as adding to the legacy of the series that Daniel started?
Well, I think more than anything, I hope it's clear after having read issue 25 that continuing the legacy of what Daniel started is very important to me. I wanted the book to not feel like, a fresh coat of paint, a new beginning, and all that kind of stuff. I wanted it to very much feel like issue 25 of a cohesive run. So, that's why there's some subplots that were picked up directly from Daniel's run, and I'm hoping that everything is consistent as possible and that the characters are the characters. Soundwave took a pretty big hit, so his dialogue might be a little different, but that was deliberate. But yeah, I think that really just making sure that Shredhead is going to be very present. That was a character that Daniel and Jorge added into the series, and that's not a character that's going to suddenly disappear because a new writer that didn't have a hand in creating him is taking over the book. So yeah, it's something that is really important to me. So yeah.
Growing up, I feel like everyone got into Transformers through the cartoons, and so I was curious to know, how do you write or draw to translate the emotion that these characters have when you can't hear the voice and there's no human distinct features? So how do you draw them? How do you write them to where when people read them on the page, you're like, oh, I feel that pain, or I feel that emotion that these characters are having?
I mean, Well, to be completely honest, I just write them like they're human beings. So that's an easy thing for me to do. I don't have to worry about how to make Optimus Prime's face emote. That is something that these guys do, and that they do it really well. And I can only imagine, like when you get a script that's like Optimus Prime is angry, Optimus Prime is sad, Optimus. I don't know how you manage that.
Angry is easy because you just put the eyebrows. But with the emotions, the more difficult emotions maybe are when he's sad or thinking, or I don't know, because you have to use the whole body to put the emotions, maybe the shadows or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of like a living metal kind of like entity, so like you can play with those emotions. And in that sense, you just emote it out yourself, just like you would do. So you're making the noises as you sort of like draw it or whatever. If it's Rekgar, like I'm like talking like Rekgar as I'm sort of drawing. So you try and instantiate the emotions like in yourself as you draw it, no matter what kind of character.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, when we're talking about, body language is obviously something that you can really take advantage of. But then, kind of like characters like Shockwave, that it's just one big metallic eye kind of situation. And not to get too technical, but yeah, once you start playing with the shapes and the angles of the camera, if you're not emoting if you're just like looking at the face, you can also trick those shapes to look like fear, anger, surprise, whatever. And I think that was part of the fun challenge of the book, was like, because again, yeah, kind of like you were saying, you guys are writing these characters as they should be. It's just like humans that are, or just people that are going through different emotions no matter what, and the challenge is to convey those emotions like Robert and Daniel did, and yeah, I mean, Transformers was a surprisingly emotional book. So yeah, I mean, that's the fun thing to do. But yeah, and then you go back, you look at the cartoon, you see how they were doing stuff over there, and then you see how you can translate it to more static shots. So yeah.
Plus, maybe there's sort of like in the case of Shockwave, there's sort of an unknowable nature.
Yes, also, yeah.
That kind of adds a mystique to whatever.
Yeah.
So you're playing with the emotion, but it's also like
it helps that he's a sociopath. So like not knowing what it's like promoting is great. Yeah,
it's like the blank sunglasses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What I love about the series is that it's very creative forward, despite it being a licensed book. So, what's it like for all of you guys to kind of be able to work on a book as big as an IP of Transformers, but be able to put your own spin on it? You guys are creating kind of like a new history for a lot of people this generation. This and Transformers 1 will probably be what they reference for their sort of entry point to it. So, what's that been about?
Well, I'll go ahead and just say that, our starting point with the Energon Universe internally at Skybound was we need to find creators that will care about these books and will feel the importance of these books and dedicate their time to these books and passion to these books as if they were creator-owned books. That was something that was very important to us, that, Joshua, all these guys here, myself, Daniel, like we all, live and breathe this stuff and love it. We have a real passion for these characters. And so, it's important to us that it comes through in the books.
Yeah, I think, again, I was kind of like, well, now technically, officially, kind of in the middle of picking up where Daniel, left, and now Dan, which is, oh my God. So like
stuck between the two Daniels.
Yeah. No. It's a frightening position to be in. But yeah, it's like you try to, kind of like Robert said, like we love these characters, we love these stories, and trying to put as much of us as we can, but at the same time keeping it this cohesive, just shape that keeps evolving. So it's a lot. I mean, I'm just happy to be part of this. So.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, it's easy to find the love because like I've known these characters for a long time, but then also I've loved Lorenzo Dave from the first 18 years. So like being able to just pick up from that and continue with that, everything was ready at hand, and you just carry that forward into every single page, every single panel. You just try and bring your A game every time.
This is a fun one. When you are are putting these books together, has there been any specific examples with Void Rivals setting something up in Transformers, or Transformers setting something up in Void Rivals, or even in the shared universe aspect where you guys are getting stuff from the G.I. Joe side? You're like, oh, this is actually going to affect our story in some way. Have there been any moments where you're like, oh, this is really cool that this is, being able to kind of play with each other? Or if you don't want to spoil anything, has there been anything in the books that have come out so far that you can point to and be like, that was a great input from the G.I. Joe side, or we knew we were going to set this up between Void Rivals and Transformers?
I think the clearest example of that is just like the Autobots wouldn't technically be awake on Earth if the characters from Void Rivals hadn't found Jetfire.
Sure.
And so, that's kind of a cool entanglement. I know that the stuff that we're working on with Pythona in Void Rivals might seem like somewhat separate right now, but that sets up a lot of stuff with Cobra Law, and it's changing Pythona in some interesting ways so that when she returns to Earth eventually, there'll be some ramifications from that are felt in G.I. Joe and some of the other books.
Cool.
But yeah, I think that Duke's encounter with Starscream is another, really great example of like something that's going to have far-reaching ramifications in the universe for years to come.
For sure.
So yeah, it's nice that we're able to have these entanglements. Upcoming stuff, without spoiling anything, there's just a lot more of that stuff. There's things like Miles Mayhem showing up and Matt Tracker showing up that are going to dovetail into some exciting things that I don't think people are going to expect.
Cool. Did you want to pantomime any other upcoming things as well? No? Okay, great.
Not a lot. Not legally allowed.
Smart.
If I could, because it kind of piggybacks off of his question. Did picking up on Transformers from Daniel kind of made it easier for the long-term planning of the universe, or are you guys still on the similar course that you've been on from the start?
Have you heard the term tough act to follow? There's a tremendous amount of pressure that is very much being felt. So yeah, it definitely didn't make it easy in that respect. In another respect, he did make it easy because, we were able to talk for a very long time leading up to the transition, and he was like, I'm not going to get to this, I'm not going to get to that, I'm going to leave this open for you. And that stuff was extremely helpful. He's been great. I mean, there's actually something big coming up in issue 30 that was, he's like, I'm thinking about maybe getting to this at some point, that might be cool. I'm totally doing that. That was a suggestion from him. So he's been really helpful and accommodating, and any good ideas he gives me, I'm totally going to use because people aren't going to know. But yeah, it's been a fun transition, but I am definitely feeling the pressure.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much.
And then to kind of follow up on sort of like planning things along, like how firm are those plans? Like, is there some things that are big that you kind of like leave it a little bit more open to kind of move some characters around or some storylines? Or is it something more kind of like, hey, we have like an end goal and then there's like some space between that?
I would say, with G.I. Joe, like, we're in a great space in the sense because Josh Williamson is like the planner. That would be his code name, I think, if you were a member of G.I. Joe, where like, he's got like Bibles and documents and long-term plans. We were talking about last night, I think takes us like 50 or something like that. So like we have input. We have Energon Universe summits where we talk about all these different ideas and stuff, like kind of where it goes.
But at the same time, because that's so long down the road, not everything is 100% locked in at all times, So some things will change, sometimes on the fly, sometimes premeditated. It's all there, but there's room for some wiggling to happen.
Also, kind of, I guess, my final thought on that. Hasbro's a really great partner in the sense that they're like flexible and like, if we change plans or pivot in certain ways and stuff. So,
Hasbro's let me do whatever I want, which is not, that's not always the case.
You're on record with that.
Oh yeah, no, they let me do whatever I want. And with something like G.I. Joe, which is a big license and Hasbro's the biggest toy company in the world, they could very easily say, do it like this.
Yeah.
And they don't. They're super open.
We're kind of chuckling, but like really, they could be micromanaging. Hey, don't draw that character that way.
This is like not a common
Right. So you're
collaborative
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of wild.
situation.
I always remember the story where Daniel said he came up with the idea of killing off Bumblebee, and he just thought Hasbro was gonna be so against it, and he said Hasbro were like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. We use them too much anyway. Please kill him." Yeah.
We don't even like them. Get rid of them.
No, that's awesome. Because I've even heard like interviewing creators, like sometimes you can't even put like a character in a certain jacket, or something like that. And that's how deep the micromanaging goes. So
It
it's
depends,
really cool. And as a reader, it's been cool to kind of see these characters in different situations. And as someone that didn't really grow up with G.I. Joe, my first interaction was that 2009 movie, sadly. But it's it's one of those things where it's cool to kind of see them taken to new heights. So it's really kind of like cool to see what you guys have been doing.
So when Duke and Cobra Commander debuted, I was working at another publishing company at the time, and I remember like Josh was like giving me copies, and I remember reading it, and I'm like, oh my goodness! I was like, I can't believe that like this is wild, and in the best way. Like this is so fun, and I was impressed. But again, like I said, that partnership with Hasbro, they kind of let them cook.
Yeah.
As the Energon Universe grows and gets bigger and more interactions with the Transformers characters, is there anywhere you want to see the G.I. Joe characters go away from Earth so that they'll interact more with Transformers?
That's not a bad idea. There's no G.I. Joe guy with a spaceship, though. Is there?
Could be an
Like a NASA
opportunity.
guy?
You just said Hasbro will let you do whatever you want. So
No, there's a G.I. Joe shuttle.
Oh, there is?
Yep.
That's wild. Does it look like the space shuttle? It has to. Cool. Just like a blue space shuttle? Sweet.
There's an upcoming issue of a Real American Hero. It would be interesting. I mean, it's just strictly fan. Like, this is not like,
Fighting on like the International Space Station or something would be sweet.
Like G.I. Joe
Pressurized,
Cybertron, you've got like a deployment of his tanks, you know what I mean, attacking Shockwave's, fortress or something along the lines. Yeah, take the word of that.
In how you approach editing now at Skybound, have you changed how you do it compared to that other company? Or are you still?
No, not really. To some degree, I've worked a lot of different. I've worked at Dark Horse, Marvel, DC, where I was before. To a large degree, they're all very similar. There's more hoops here because like Hasbro, there's like a approval process and things along those lines. But for me, like as an editor, it always boils down to the creators you hire and the collaboration vision that we collectively work from. And again, having Hasbro as a partner, like they're kind of open to what we want to do. They don't dictate. So it's got to do this, you got to do that, or we got a movie coming out. So all of this has to fit in there, or anything along those lines. So as an editor, like I just love my job because again, it's like working with all these passionate creators, and we're all sort of rowing in the same direction, creating hopefully new classics, right? So that a generation from now, they would be like, man, I was so into this when I was a kid. My kids, you know what I mean? Like it's just like legacy building. It's just fun.
I know many people who've worked with Ben across many different companies. He's always been this cool and this handsome.
So that last bit, because he's an exclusive artist, not a Skybound, it's required that he remarks on good looks on every interview. Thank you, Tom.
Of course.
Yeah, I actually need to cut out.
Thanks, Ben.
One or two more questions for Tom.
All right, Tom. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If I can ask.
Sure.
We just had another reveal of a new player coming into the G.I. Joe world.
Oh, yeah.
When you get that script or when you have those conversations with Josh about a new reveal, a new debut, how many concepts do you come up with when you start planning Shooter, or even when you first started drawing for Duke? I mean, the different concepts. How much time you put into before you come to that final?
What I do, honestly, because Hasbro is such a good collaborator, I think I've gotten pretty much every character in one take.
Oh, wow.
But it's a very considered take, that looks finished and is like the research is done, and I've put a lot of thought into that take. And every now and then they'll come back with some feedback that makes it better, you know? And it's super simple stuff that they ask me to do that just, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's why I guess they're the biggest toy company in the world or whatever. But no, I don't, they don't make me do a ton of passes and stuff. And that's pretty cool. And a lot of things that I do are based both on research where needed and just like gut feelings. Like, this could look pretty sweet, and thankfully, people have agreed with those sort of intuition-based takes. So, no, they're very good at not making me go back to the drawing board, which I appreciate.
Who's your favorite Joe to draw?
It's tough. I like drawing Clutch a lot, just because he's a fun character.
Yeah.
I like Duke because I'm a Duke guy. He's the first character I drew. I do like drawing all of them. Hawk has been fun to draw, and I'm liking drawing all the Dreadnoks. It's not they're not the Joes, but I'm kind of liking those grungy, kind of gnarly characters a lot.
So who's your favorite villains to draw, the Dreadnoks?
I don't know.
Wait.
Commander's pretty
And
sweet.
although he hasn't revealed yet or debuted yet, have you been sketching any Snake Eyes?
No.
No.
Oh.
No, I'm not at liberty to discuss Snake Eyes questions at all.
Snake who?
I have to shut down every Snake Eyes.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like that. You're pretty chatty and talkative, but then as soon as
Snake Eye. Next question.
We gotta move on.
We gotta plead the fifth. That's
Very Snake Eyes.
That's very cool.
Right?
Very cool. Well, I'm sure it's gonna look kick ass when you do draw Snake Eyes. Whenever, hypothetically, it's gonna be great.
See, yeah.
We'll see.
But one question I did have was, what was it like sort of picking up from those earlier Joe books? What I really liked about sort of the build-out of like the G.I. Joe universe was that you had all those characters in it.
Yeah.
So what was it like to kind of pick up other artists' takes and then bring them together?
Well, because this is like the first kind of take of this sort of G.I. Joe team, I did not look super deep into like what decisions they were making on the other books. Like I looked at like basic iconography, like Duke's bandolier, his yellow shirt, Stalker's beret and his camo, that sort of stuff I tried to keep. And then looking at like various different references, like the toys, and like across classified original toys, all the different ones. And then just kind of blending everything together and into my take. And making sure I'm not aping people's drawings too much either, because just making sure that it is my take. It's not just, oh, he just drew this guy's take on Destro again or something. It's all got to be new and fresh, but also they got to look right. So it's a fun kind of balancing act.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you guys.
So again, I want to thank the folks over at Skybound for inviting me to the press gaggle at New York Comic Con. It is always a fun experience when we're able to get one-on-one, even in that round table type setup, to speak with the creators, to talk about their thoughts and things that happen behind the scenes when they are putting these comics together, particularly a universe such as the Energon Universe with the three separate titles that make it up, and just the collaboration that not only goes on with the folks at Skybound, but also their partnership with Hasbro and making sure that they keep those IPs honest to what Hasbro wants them to do. And it's been a great partnership that's been going on for a few years now. I can't wait to see what's next in the coming year with the Energon Universe. We've seen a new era begin with Transformers number 25, which just came out from Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora. We got the Quintessence War that is getting ready to start, as well as the Dreadnought War over on G.I. Joe. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out over the next year, and I'm quite excited about it. I've been following it since Void Rivals number 1, and I will continue to do so. But again, thanks to those folks at Skybound, particularly Shannon, for being such a great contact and keeping me informed of everything that's going on there. Uh, but next, I am going to play an interview that I did with comic book writer and editor Joe Illidge that also occurred on Saturday at New York Comic Con. He and I met and sat over in the press lounge, and we talked a little bit about Bloodletter #5, which is the final issue of the miniseries that he is co-writing with Tim Seeley, and that is a part of the Spawn universe. So he took a few minutes to talk to me about that, but as well as the anniversary of Batman: The Hill, which was the story that introduced the Hill, the idea of the Hill. That part of Gotham that was primarily black and impoverished and kind of forgotten by Batman. And so that happened decades ago, and we celebrated the anniversary of The Hill this year. But we talked a little bit about that, especially how it played into the, I don't want to say the revitalization, but the recent miniseries that Sean Martinborough did that had Jason spending time in the Hill. And of course, Sean Martinborough was the artist on the original. But here it is, my interview with comic writer and editor Joseph Illidge, as we talk about not only Bloodletter #5, but also The Hill, and a little bit about the new company, his new venture that he is kickstarting with Illuminous, this new company that looks to help other creators get their projects out there. So we talk a little bit about that as well. But here it is, my interview with Joe Illidge, and I will see you all again on the other side of that. Hey folks, it's Theo. I am sitting here in the press lounge over at New York Comic Con, and I am sitting here with friend and repeated Comic Bin visitor, Joe Illidge. Joe, how's it going?
All right, how are you doing?
I can say that I'm tired, but if I say I'm tired, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. A friend of mine earlier told me, he said, I'm too old for this. I'm like, if you come here, you come to your Comic-Con, you got to be ready for action.
Yeah, so last time we saw each other, you were quite a busy person. It was in San Diego at San Diego Comic-Con.
That's right.
It was on that last day, and you were on the last day running to another panel.
100%.
So you've been quite a busy person.
Yes, it's true.
And so to kick things off, we have, coming Wednesday, the final issue of Bloodletter.
Yes.
Tasha's journey to get revenge against Al Simmons come to an end. How has that journey been for you and Tim?
It's been great. The Spawn universe is really fertile ground. It's interesting because Spawn has been around since 1992. Todd McFarlane expanded the universe into a series of titles a few years ago. But it's such a rich and vast landscape that there's a lot of territory that hasn't been explored. And so to be able to find the entryway with Tasha's revenge story going back 10 years to before Al Simmons was Spawn and when he was a CIA agent, that's been really exciting. It's given us the opportunity to revisit the Spawn universe from a new direction, a new lens, and reveal some of the secret history. The Spawn fans have really embraced it, which we really appreciate, and the entire team has just really put 100% into it. And if you've read Bloodletter, you saw how Tasha's fight with Spawn went, and now we have to deal with the consequences of that. How is Tasha navigating in the world? Where is she emotionally? And how is this arc of hers, this personal journey for revenge, going to end?
Could you and Tim have seen Tasha's story go further beyond the 5 issues that we're getting?
100%. I mean, when you're writing a story, when you're introducing a new character in a mythology, you have a long vision. So Tim and I went in with kind of like a 50-issue vision for what Tasha's macro arc is. And so the first 5 issues is what we see as the first micro arc. So the character has a long evolutionary journey to go through, and the beginning of it had to be the resolution of her emotional, desire to destroy Spawn, right? And the aftermath of that is really what will propel her forward. So from our point of view, Tasha has a long life, and we'll see what the fans think, how Todd McFarlane wants to really continue to expand out his universe, but we have a long arc in mind for Tasha Thornwall.
Well, that's great to know that we could possibly get some more soon. Todd,
Fingers crossed.
Todd, if you're listening, make it happen, please. So, step away from Image a little bit, and we're going to step over to DC because we kind of had a anniversary this year when we celebrate Batman the Hill.
Yes.
And of course, you were the editor on that story. What did that story mean to you?
So Batman the Hill has reached its 25th anniversary this year. It came out in the summer of 2000, and I inherited it actually. The first editor was Jordan Gorfinkel, and then I was the second editor on it, and so it was our combined editorial tenure that did the book. It was a one-shot written by Christopher Priest, illustrated by Sean Martinborough, and it was about Batman entering a section of Gotham City that he had never been to called the Hill, and that was an area of poverty where people of color lived, and so when he went there, the people there weren't afraid of him. The myth of Batman meant nothing to them, and he had to confront his own inadequacies as a defender of justice there, and he had to learn how the Hill worked and how those people lived, and he had to become one of them. He had to take on some subterfuge to live in the Hill for a period of time so he could understand how to help those people or to help them help themselves, right? And so for me, when I look at that story, number one, the fact that we're the 25th anniversary is great. Batman the Hill would go to inspire other stories. Brandon Thomas and Kari Randolph did a great story in Batman Black and White. Sean Martinborough, who was the artist of the original Batman the Hill one-shot, ended up writing a series that was a sequel called Red Hood the Hill. And so when you look at the film legacy of Batman, the Christopher Nolan, David Goyer approach to Batman, which is Batman as an agent of civic responsibility, that leads back to Batman the Hill. Batman the Hill was not a story about fighting crime. Batman the Hill was a story about civic responsibility and individual civic agency. And so I'm very proud of what we've accomplished with that book, that book still has resonance in our time today, and that the Hill has become part of the architecture of Gotham City.
Yeah, I absolutely loved how Sean was able to bring it back with Red Hood. And, one of the things that was quickly identified when that first issue came out was that they still were not afraid of Batman,
Right.
And that history, that lack of fear
Yes.
in the Dark Knight
Yes.
still remains in the Hill to this day. And
Yes.
I love that play on that history of the original story.
Yeah, exactly. It really lends itself to the theme that Christopher Priest introduced in the original one-shot. We know Christopher Priest as one of the most important writers in the last 30 years of comics. He was the first editor of color on Spider-Man. He was one of the founders of Milestone Media, and he has just done so much in the history of Batman and in the history of comics. And he always likes to engage complex social and psychological character themes. And so being able to tell this kind of socioeconomic story, through the lens of Batman was something that was very innovative at the time. And I feel like comics has now caught up with that. We've seen Scott Snyder do similar when he was the regular writer on Batman. We've seen a variety of comics take that approach more towards Batman, that Batman is part of a socioeconomic treatise, right? And so, it was great to be there at kind of a nucleus point for that kind of thinking with the character.
Yeah, and you mentioned Christopher Priest. I met him a few months ago when he visited New Orleans for
Yes.
GalaxyCon.
Mhm.
And you mentioned how he always liked to approach these complex issues in his storytelling. And we were just talking about a character, and it was a character that he had done a lot of writing on, and the history of that character just changed. And
Yes.
so, and I don't want to reveal it because it was something that he wants to pitch.
Sure.
But he, the idea is that he's still thinking of how he could go back and approach that character to retell the story, to get from where he left the character off to where the character is now. Just again, highlights how much that mind is always churning and always thinking of new ideas and how to bring a character forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, he's a writer to his core. He appreciates the sophistication of the audience, and so he challenges himself to write stories to match the sophistication of the audience, right? Comic books when they came out were seen more as children's fare. But when you're talking about the superhero genre, for the most part, at the least in direct market comics, is consumed more by adults than it is by children. And so I think Christopher's work really tries to respond to that reality.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I enjoyed that conversation I had with him on record and off the record. So for the last few minutes we have together, let's talk about your latest venture
Okay.
In the industry, and that is Illuminous.
Yes.
Tell us about Illuminous for those who have not heard about it yet.
So Illuminous is a company that I launched, which is an editorial services company. So I work for clients, creators, and companies that are looking to develop IP, original ideas, and introduce them to the world in the form of comic books and graphic novels. So I'm basically bringing my decades of experience working at Milestone on Batman, Heavy Metal Magazine to bear for people who want to create their own original ideas, but start them in the format of comic books and graphic novels. One aspect of that is consulting on how to, instead of creating a 5-issue idea, to create a 50-issue idea, to create a 5-year idea, something with long narrative power. And so that is the service that Illuminous provides. And I've been doing editing work behind the scenes for the last 6 years. So it just turned out to be the right time to take that out of the shadows and bring it into the light and have my company be the spearhead of that service.
And you mentioned comics and graphic novels, but it's not just limited to the medium, right?
Well, primarily comic books and graphic novels. There is a division of Illuminous that is a production company, and that portion of the company announced a deal with 50 Cent's G-Unit Film and Television and Color Farm Productions, which is co-owned by Erica Alexander of Living Single and now Invasion, Wu-Tang Clan, and American Saga. And it was basically to take Christopher's comic book, Zero, which was published by DC Comics, but it's a spy comic that Christopher has now owns the rights to, and so we're looking to develop that as a film franchise.
So if there are any aspiring creators that are out there watching today, and they wanted to find out a little bit more about Illuminous, how could they reach out?
Basically, illuminousideas.com. That is the URL for the company, and you can reach me on various socials.
Yeah.
Joe Illidge, it's always good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
And so I want to thank Joseph Illidge once again for sitting with me on Saturday at New York Comic Con. It is always a great experience when he and I are able to sit and talk about comics. We get into one topic, which is the topic of that particular episode, and we always end up talking about something else either before or after recording. But I was able to meet up with him this time around, like I couldn't do at San Diego Comic Con, which he was like I said, he was quite busy, with all the panels that he sat on in San Diego, and he had at least one panel at New York Comic Con as well, that focused on being a comic creator and starting things off. But I always enjoy having a conversation with him. I am very excited to see what comes together with regards to Illuminous and how he's able to move that venture of his forward while also helping other aspiring creators to get their pictures out there, to get their product out there, and I'm excited to see what comes next from it. But that is going to do it. That is my final recap of New York Comic Con 2025. I want to once again give thanks to the folks at Reed Pop for allowing me to cover the event as I've done for the past 2 or 3 years. It is always a great experience, and each time I head out to the Javits Center, I always end up learning a lot more about the industry itself, pop culture industry. And one of the things that I truly enjoy when attending something like New York Comic Con is the networking that I'm able to do, not only with other comic creators but other members of the press, whether it's large organizations or someone like me, a single person who had a few writers on his side who could do things, and we're able to connect and talk and you know talk about our love of whatever it is that we are following, whether it's comics or it's anime or it's manga. But it's how I personally learn more about myself and what I kind of like and what I can learn to like within the pop culture genre. As you all know, I've grown myself over the years when it comes to learning more and more about anime and with manga. And I recently went to see the latest Demon Slayer movie. I am prepped to go and see Chainsaw Man next. So I'm growing and expanding, and part of the reason is due to the networking that I've been able to do at places like New York Comic Con. And again, I thank the folks at Repop for allowing me to cover it. I first got exposed to them when they allowed me to cover C2E2, and it's grown since then. And from there, I've been able to just meet a lot of great folks, and I'm looking forward to that that experience and that networking and just everything to continue with that relationship with Repop. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. Next time, well, there are no more cons. Things are getting back to normal. I do have some interviews that I am looking to line up over the next few weeks. But I've gotten out of doing comic book reviews, and I'm going to get back into doing that. So be on the lookout for the return of my top five. And so with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining in, and I will see you all next time. That is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support of the program. The Comic Bin Podcast, as well as the Comic Book Spot, are a part of the Comic Book Source family of sites and media. You can follow the podcast on Twitter X at comic_bin, or my personal account at BatmanFan_4life. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. We're all over social media. You can also follow our sister site over at thebatmanuniverse.net for all of your news and reviews in the world of Batman. Tune in next time as we give you more in the world of comic books. Again, we truly appreciate your support. But until we meet again next time, keep reading those comics.